What if some of the most controversial stories in the Bible were suddenly confronted by something that doesn't care what anyone believes: ancient stone, plaster, and human remains buried for centuries? That's the question at the center of a new book from best-selling author and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza, who says 3 years of exploring biblical archaeology left him convinced that the physical evidence deserves far more attention than it gets. But here's where the story gets especially interesting. Some of the discoveries he points to are connected to people who appear in the Bible, including Pontius Pilate, Balaam, and Caiaphas. D'Souza says his interest began after traveling to Israel in 2022. What started as a trip eventually became a multi-year investigation into archaeology and the historical world surrounding the Old and New Testaments. His new book, The Stones Cry Out, is scheduled for release on October 13, 2026, and examines archaeological discoveries involving biblical people, places, and events. D'Souza's central argument is bold. Archaeology has repeatedly uncovered evidence that puts names and places from biblical accounts into the real historical landscape. One of the clearest examples is Pontius Pilate. For centuries, the Roman official was known primarily through ancient written sources, including the New Testament. Then, in 1961, archaeologists working at Caesarea Maritima discovered a damaged limestone inscription bearing the name Pontius Pilate and identifying him as prefect of Judea. The artifact is now associated with the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, and it provides direct archaeological evidence that Pilate was a real Roman official holding that title in 1st century Judea. And that title matters. D'Souza argues that the inscription fits the biblical description of Pilate unusually well because it identifies him as prefect. That doesn't mean the stone describes Jesus' trial or proves the crucifixion itself. It does something more specific, and historically important. It confirms that a major figure from the gospel story existed and held a position consistent with the period. Then there's Balaam, a much more obscure figure. In the book of Numbers, Balaam appears as a diviner connected to the king of Moab. But in 1967, archaeologists excavating at Deir Alla in modern-day Jordan discovered fragments of an ancient plaster inscription referring to Balaam, son of Beor. The inscription dates to the Iron Age and describes Balaam as a seer. Scholars debate exactly how the inscription relates to the biblical tradition, and the text presents Balaam within a religious world different from the Bible's account. Still, the matching name and patronymic make the discovery one of the most fascinating pieces of evidence in biblical archaeology. But the discovery D'Souza describes as especially startling involves Caiaphas, the high priest associated in the Gospels with the events surrounding Jesus' trial. In the early 1990s, archaeologists found an ornate ossuary in a Jerusalem burial cave bearing an inscription interpreted as Joseph, son of Caiaphas. The box contained human remains belonging to an older man, and many scholars have connected the find with the Caiaphas known from ancient sources. But there is an important caveat: the identification has been debated, so presenting the remains as unquestionably belonging to the biblical Caiaphas would go beyond what the evidence can securely establish. And that's really the bigger story here. Archaeology doesn't work like a courtroom where one artifact suddenly proves every detail of a centuries-old text. Instead, archaeologists build history piece by piece, through inscriptions, buildings, burial practices, coins, geographical evidence, and layers of ancient settlements. Some discoveries strongly confirm that particular people or places existed, others provide context, and some remain genuinely disputed. D'Souza wants to bring that complicated world beyond academic circles and into the hands of ordinary readers. He also argues that visiting Israel can change the way people understand biblical geography, because places mentioned in ancient texts aren't simply abstract names on a page. Sites such as the Pool of Siloam and the ancient roads of Jerusalem connect the written record to a physical landscape that can still be explored today. Whether you approach the Bible as scripture, history, literature, some combination of all three, the archaeological question is impossible to ignore. Buried beneath thousands of years of history are inscriptions and artifacts that continue to challenge assumptions about the ancient world. And perhaps that's the most fascinating part: the debate isn't over. New discoveries can change what historians think they know, while old discoveries can take on new meaning as evidence is re-examined. Dinesh D'Souza believes those stones are telling a story, and his new book is an attempt to make that story accessible to a much wider audience. You don't have to accept every conclusion to appreciate the mystery of what archaeology is still uncovering. Because sometimes history doesn't speak through a headline or a theory, it speaks through something that survived thousands of years underground, waiting for someone to find it. If you found this update helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Unix Media, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest news. Thanks for watching.